This is your sci-fi recap. The movie opens. On the distant planet of Chiton, a woman gives birth as her husband, John, gently brings the newborn into her arms. Their moment of joy is short-lived when the distant roar of an approaching spacecraft shatters the calm. Fearing for their child's safety, the mother urges Jan to hide the baby. Jan, however, knows their pursuers will find him regardless. There is only one option left, and both parents glance toward a small space pod. As the enemy ship descends onto the rooftop of their tower, Jan hurriedly inputs coordinates into the pod's navigation system, selecting the United States, believing it to be the most advanced region on Earth. They watch in sorrow as the pod launches into the sky. Moments later, soldiers storm through the entrance, making way for their leader, the dictator Skorba, seated in a levitating chair. With a cold smile, he demands to know the baby's destination. Jan refuses to answer, prompting Skorba to threaten mass destruction. At that moment, Skorba's daughter, Agatha, steps forward, eager to prove her worth. Using her ability to read minds, she extracts the truth from Jan, learning the child was sent to a blue planet called Earth. Determined to succeed, she boards her own craft. Skorba reminds her that he wants the child alive, and she vows to deliver. Agatha soon catches up to the pod, but just as it nears Earth, a collision with a satellite sends it veering off course. Her own vessel lands in the United States, while the baby's pod continues on to Spain. On Earth, a rural couple, Juan and Maria, are driving home when the strange craft nearly collides with their truck. They stop to investigate, and as the pod opens, they find a wide-eyed alien infant inside. Maria lifts the baby from the pod, cradling him in her arms, and proudly shows him to her husband, Juan. At first, Juan is put off, especially by the infant's tiny mustache, but his reluctance softens when the child grabs his finger. The tenderness is short-lived, however, as the baby suddenly bends Juan's finger backward, making him yelp in pain. They bring the child home, where Juan immediately shaves off the mustache. To their surprise, it grows back instantly. Deciding to raise him as their own, they name him Juan, though they affectionately call him Juanito. As he grows, his extraordinary abilities become apparent. Super strength, heightened vision, and incredible speed. He uses them casually, though this often makes other children see him as strange. During a local soccer match, young Juanito serves as goalkeeper. Unsure who to pass to and overwhelmed by the pressure, he dashes across the field at super speed and scores the goal himself. While the crowd reacts in shock, his teammates are far from impressed. Later, Juan sternly warns him against showing his powers in public. On his birthday, Juanito waits outside for his friends, but no one shows up. Trying to comfort him, Juan reminds him that tall poppies get cut down, meaning those who stand out often become targets. He warns that in Spain, people will drag you down if you rise above the rest. Maria arrives with a birthday cake, encouraging him to make a wish. Juanito wishes to be normal and blows out the candles, accidentally blasting cake across his parents' faces. Years pass, and Juanito grows into an adult, now simply called Juan. One morning, he's sprawled on the couch when his phone rings. On the other end is his friend and boss, Jaime, already frustrated, assuming Juan is late for work again. Juan lies, claiming he's on his way, but Jaime reveals he just checked and Juan's not there. Scrambling for an excuse, Juan says he's in the bathroom, only for Jaime to order him to get to the office immediately. Juan hurriedly starts to get dressed. Juan rushes to work and manages to arrive before Jaime. When Jaime finally comes in, Juan pretends he's been busy at his desk for some time. He notices Jaime's cologne and casually asks when he started wearing it. Jaime explains that it's connected to why he wanted to speak with Juan. Today is the first day for a new hire, and he's already interested in her. Juan frowns, warning him that the office isn't a dating pool. Jaime shrugs it off, insisting it's no different. He then asks Juan to help organize a welcome party for her, but Juan reminds him they've never done that for anyone else. Fed up, Juan excuses himself to get breakfast instead. At the vending machine, Juan struggles with a stuck chocolate bar when he senses movement outside. Using his enhanced vision, he spots the new hire. It's Luisa, a friend from his college days. He quickly buzzes her in, though she mistakes him for the receptionist. Later that day, they hold Luisa's welcome party, which turns out to be just Juan, Jaime, and two janitors staying after hours. The atmosphere is painfully awkward, and Luisa excuses herself to use the restroom. By the time Juan returns with more ice, she's already left. Determined to catch her, Juan hurries to the train station. He makes it to the platform, but she's nowhere in sight until he hears her calling from the opposite side. He tries to ask her to dinner, but she declines as her train approaches. Moments later, she's startled to find him boarding behind her, casually asking if she likes olives. They end up at a pizza parlor, reminiscing about their college days. Their conversation is interrupted when a loud group of teenagers bursts in. Annoyed, Luisa yells at them to quiet down and even swats one with her bag. The boy turns to Juan, challenging him to retaliate, but Juan stands his ground and calmly tries to defuse the situation. The teenager boasts that he could take Juan down with just one finger. Juan dismisses it as impossible until it happens. Another boy had crouched behind him, and with a simple push, Juan topples backward in embarrassment. Later, Juan sits alone at the train station, replaying in his mind what his father once told him on his birthday. His thoughts are interrupted by an announcement for the final train of the night. Moments later, the train speeds past without stopping. Its brakes have failed. Juan notices a nearby poster reading, "It's time. Take the step." Taking it as a sign, he springs into action. Racing to the next station, he tries to halt the train but fails. Undeterred, he dashes to the following station where he uncoils a fire hose and braces himself. Using both the hose and his immense strength, he manages to stop the runaway train just in time. Slipping away before anyone can recognize him, he does his best to keep his identity hidden. Meanwhile, in the United States, Agata, Scorba's daughter, has built a successful career as the founder of Chit Technologies. She's in the middle of a public demonstration for her company's newest cleaning robot, the Chitobot. When an aide interrupts with urgent news, they may have located Jan's son. She reviews the surveillance footage but can't make out the man's face. Even so, the evidence is enough for her to decide to pursue him personally. By the next morning, news of the mysterious man who stopped the train is everywhere. At Juan's office, his co-workers crowd around a television to watch the coverage. Luisa scoffs at the idea of a Spanish hero, calling it a publicity stunt, while Juan quietly defends the man's actions. Their attention shifts when the broadcast announces that Agata is visiting Spain, and she publicly addresses the unknown hero, inviting him to meet her. Agata publicly declares that she and the mystery hero could accomplish great things together. At Chit Technologies' Barcelona headquarters, she contacts Scorba, informing him she has found Jan's son. Scorba, ever critical, belittles her efforts and warns that if she doesn't have the boy when he arrives, he will destroy Earth, her included. Meanwhile, Juan is on a bus, running late for dinner with Luisa. He calls to say he's only minutes away, but is suddenly interrupted by a high-pitched sound that only he can hear. It's Agata telepathically contacting him. She explains that first, he shouldn't bother speaking aloud because she can't hear him, and second, she wants him to come see her so she can explain everything. Juan complies, heading straight to her office. When they meet, he recognizes her as the vacuum lady, while she tries to charm him, explaining they are alike and share the same alien origin. Juan refuses to believe her and starts to leave, but Agata reads his mind, spotting Luisa waiting for him. She orders one of her men to restrain Juan, but he overpowers the guard with ease. More henchmen rush in, yet Juan slips away. Frustrated, Agata decides to exploit his weakness, Luisa, and instructs her team to obtain a DNA sample from her. Back at the office, Jaime leaves a note on Luisa's desk, unaware that a Chit vacuum cleaner is analyzing the lipstick mark on her cup. Curious about the strange noise, he checks the device and sees it transmitting data. Suddenly, the machine turns hostile, attacking him. Luckily, the two janitors intervene, helping him destroy it. Jaime wastes no time calling Luisa to warn her. Elsewhere, Juan hesitates outside Luisa's door until he hears her voice calling from behind. He turns and runs toward her. Luisa scolds Juan for keeping her waiting too long at the restaurant. Their exchange quickly turns into an argument. Luisa accuses him of not being interested in her from the start, while Juan insists something unusual happened on his way there. Frustrated by his decision to simply walk away, she hurls more insults at him. Nearby, Jaime spots the two together and feels betrayed. At that moment, a Chit Technologies van pulls up behind him, with Agata inside. Noticing his interest in Luisa, she tempts him with a deal. If he helps her, she'll make sure he gets a chance with her. Meanwhile, Juan heads to his parents' home seeking answers about his origins. At first, they dodge the truth, but when he explains that a woman has appeared claiming she wants to take him to another galaxy, they relent. They reveal the small space pod that brought him to Earth. As soon as Juan touches it, a holographic message from his real father, Jan, appears, explaining who he is and what became of their home planet. Juan remains skeptical, but Jan urges him to accept his true identity. While searching the pod, Maria finds a piece of cloth emblazoned with an S. Soon after, Juan is wearing a makeshift suit stitched from the fabric. The conversation shifts to his potential ability to fly, and his parents encourage him to test it from the top of a building. After several hesitant gestures, Juan finally leaps, only to crash face first onto the ground. Discouraged, he wanders off until he encounters a pair of kids who mock him. To their shock, he begins levitating, prompting them to flee in terror. Testing himself further, Juan hops from place to place, eventually floating his way back home. Not long after, Luisa arrives at the door. Juan is surprised when she embraces him warmly. She assures him she already knows everything, and they retreat to his room to talk. During the conversation, Luisa begins speaking favorably about Agatha. Juan wants to focus on more pressing matters, specifically what happened the previous night, but the Luisa before him has no idea what he's talking about. In reality, Agatha has placed Jaime in charge of the imposter. Jaime, simmering with resentment, is taken aback when Juan insists on speaking to him first because they're friends. The sentiment softens Jaime, if only for a moment. Agatha abruptly takes control of the situation, striking Juan and engaging him in a fight. Despite his efforts, the fake Luisa gains the upper hand. Suddenly, Juan's mother jumps in, battering the imposter with her shoes. Juan, furious, finally smashes the fake Luisa's head, revealing it to be a decoy. Disillusioned, Jaime abandons Agatha's scheme and warns Juan that she intends to kidnap the real Luisa. When Agatha learns of this betrayal, she decides to use both Jaime and Luisa as bait. Back home, Juan's mother urges him to rescue Luisa. He flies to meet her at the Arco de Triunfo, subtly testing her identity with a series of questions. Once convinced she's genuine, Luisa asks what's going on. Juan reveals the truth, but she refuses to believe him until he offers to prove it. Before he can, a group of costumed men attack, distracting him long enough for Agatha's men to seize Luisa. She delivers an ultimatum. If Juan wants her safe, he must join Agatha and Scorba in ruling the world. Juan races to Agatha's headquarters, where he finds Luisa and Jaime bound. Luisa still doubts his abilities, but Jaime urges him to show her. Using his enhanced vision, Juan describes exactly what Luisa is wearing. As he moves to untie her, Agatha triggers the high-frequency signal, sending waves of pain through him and forcing him to the floor. Jaime and Luisa shout encouragement, urging him to fight through it, but nothing seems to work. Realizing insults work better than encouragement, Jaime mocks Juan relentlessly, with Luisa joining in. Their taunts begin to stir something in him, just as Scorba's ship touches down on Earth. Scorba greets Agatha with cold dismissal, barely acknowledging her before declaring his eagerness to meet John's son. Agatha leads her father and his soldiers to Juan's location. Meanwhile, Luisa and Jaime keep up their verbal barrage until Juan summons the strength to blast a hole through the wall, allowing them to escape. As they flee, Scorba berates Agatha, comparing her unfavorably to other family members and calling her a disappointment. Pushed to the edge, Agatha rips away his oxygen supply. In his final moments, she reads his mind, and for the first time, receives his approval. Seizing the moment, Agatha assumes command of his forces and takes his place as leader. Juan, Luisa, and Jaime return home, where Juan announces he's done with being a superhero. In a symbolic gesture, he burns his suit, but the peace doesn't last. Scorba's massive ship descends, and Agatha emerges. Juan tells her he has no intention of going with her, but she threatens to destroy the planet instead, starting with their town. She presses a button, transforming her hovering egg into a towering combat robot. The battle begins with Juan's father intervening, only to be sucked into Agatha's machine. Nearby, the same three kids who once mocked Juan watch in awe as Agatha batters him. She hurls him into the middle of a soccer match where he grabs onto the net for support. Back at the farm, Agatha pursues Juan's mother. Juan flies in just in time, but fumbles, dropping the soccer net onto his mother and inadvertently making her an easy target. Agatha captures her as well. Juan is slammed to the ground, repeatedly stomped by the robot's massive feet. Just as Agatha prepares to finish him with a spinning razor disc, Jaime leaps out to create a diversion. Juan is pulled toward Agata's spinning robot, and just as she prepares to strike him, Luisa drives her truck into the fray, shouting insults to distract her. Jaime and Juan's parents join in, their voices reigniting his focus. With renewed determination, Juan regains consciousness. Before Agata can capture Luisa, he tears off one of the robot's massive arms and begins hammering it with relentless punches. Luisa encourages him, reminding him of how the boys once provoked him on their first date. As Agata approaches a nearby pool, Juan unleashes his icy breath, sending her tumbling into the water. Jaime and the others swim to safety, and Juan ensures everyone is alright. Finally reunited with Luisa, his mother asks what he plans to do about his home planet. Juan smiles, assuring her he already has a plan. Meanwhile, Scorba's ship returns to Chiton with Agata restrained, but instead of Juan, it carries one of the costumed troublemakers from before. Later, back in Spain, Luisa turns off her alarm as Juan rises and suits up. He flies over the city, the radio narrating the citizens' mixed feelings about their mysterious hero. Sitting atop a statue, Juan is content, enjoying the moment. Soon after, Luisa waits at a restaurant while Juan runs late again. They argue about his need to balance hero duties with their relationship, but eventually find common ground. As she tells him to pay the bill, the waiter surprises them. A hooded man from the bar has already done so. Turning to thank him, they hear him declare, "Superlopez, you owe me," before he mysteriously pops a pacifier into his mouth and vanishes.